Welcome back to the Enchanted Astrology Podcast with Ariel Smith. This is the Quantum Zodiac series. In this series, we're exploring astrology as a map of consciousness, and this is done through the blending of the lenses of science, astrology, spirituality, religion, and lived experience. And in the last episode, we explored Neptune, which was the wave function, the field of infinite potential, that perfect neutral state or perfect peace, and unity. And today, we move to Pluto. And Pluto is now where something happens to that neutral state. So we're now moving from neutrality, from possibility and potential into consequence. So if Neptune is that state of infinite potential, that wave function, Pluto is the moment now where this neutrality is disrupted. And we know that Pluto represents the transition of form. It goes from timelessness into time. It goes from the potential of something to the consequence. It's a state of change. And in physics, we can think of Pluto symbolically as the scattering amplitude. And it's a fancy word for just meaning that it's the point where a system is no longer neutral or untouched. We begin to see interactions. There are directions that are now chosen. A before and an after are now established. So this is the birth of the realm of cause and effect. And we often think of Pluto as only the really big moments, right? When we think of Pluto, it's like, oh my goodness, this is a once in a lifetime change. Something's like it's death and rebirth, total and complete transformation, something huge. But actually, Pluto is operating constantly. Pluto actually operates with every thought that you have, every choice that you make, and every action that you take. And each one of those introduces direction into the field. Each one creates its own consequence. And we don't usually think this way because we think of our thoughts or choices or actions as being big or small. We think of them as being, oh, that's just a tiny little thought or it's just a tiny little choice. But in the world of God, there is no such thing as order of degree. So there's no, $1 is significantly smaller than $1 million, and there's the spectrum in between. There is no such thing as orders of degree in that way. So Pluto is the law that is governing every single decision that you make, because they all are equally important. They all have equal cause and effect. So the moment a thought arises, the system is no longer neutral, right? So a path has now been selected, and that thought interacts with your body, your emotions, it interacts with other people and the collective field. And this is that scattering. And depending on the alignment of that thought with love, with truth, with what is sustainable, what is in alignment, it will either support that truth and support love, or it will attack it. It will work against it. And Pluto responds to this accordingly. So when those smaller, or what we think of as smaller choices, consistently move us off course, or when we're resisting change in favor of just the old structures or what we're used to, even if they're really just not sustainable, Pluto intervenes now at a larger scale to correct this. Because if you are actively working with Pluto, auditing your energy, auditing your intentions, checking in with yourself and how aligned you are, Pluto can move with you to bring about these changes that need to happen, and chances are you're aware of that and you're moving towards that. But if you are in this state of resistance, you're resisting it, you are now becoming an obstruction to that change, or just simply ignoring it because you don't want to look at it, Pluto will find another gate to bring that change about, and this will just be through force. So you really can't resist Pluto. If the system needs to change, it will, one way or another. But you can choose whether you cooperate with that and work with it consciously, or whether the change just arrives abruptly. So Pluto removes what is not sustainable, what is not in alignment, and what cannot continue. And this applies to our identities, relationships, belief systems, power structures, inner narratives. And if something is not aligned with your soul's design, with your soul's path, or with a larger movement towards our evolution, towards our pull toward unity, our growth into love, it will eventually get stripped away. Now, in quantum physics, the scattering amplitude describes how a system evolves after an interaction happens. So again, we're in Neptune, before anything has touched or interacted with the system, before thought, choice, action, everything is existing in the sea of potential. But after there's an interaction, whether it's a thought, a choice, an action, the system is now permanently changed. And Pluto represents that change, right? Where the system is no longer this neutral, untouched sea of potential. So something's now changed it, and from that moment on, the system now carries memory. And this is where we can draw themes in from Pluto, like trauma, right? That memory of change. And Pluto has always been associated with death and rebirth, destruction and regeneration. And in quantum language, there are these things referred to as creation and annihilation operators. And annihilation operators remove energy from a system. Creation operators add energy to a system. But the number one law with this adding and removing of energy is that the order matters. So adding and then removing is not the same as removing and then adding. And this is Pluto to a T. So in physics, these creation and annihilation operators are not interchangeable because the order matters. So because of that, It means there is memory built into this system, because if there wasn't, order wouldn't matter. And once Pluto acts, the system remembers, right? It's irreversible. You can't undo a Pluto experience by trying to recreate it somehow. You are permanently changed, so you can't lose power and then regain it and just be the same as you were before you lost it or whatever. There's a permanent change that happens. And the order, because it matters if they happen in a different order, it creates an entirely different reality, right? So this is Pluto. Now, in these same quantum systems where we have these creation and annihilation operators, and if you have the annihilation operators lowering the energy level of a system, there is a lowest possible point, what is called the ground state, that cannot be lowered any further. And this is Pluto's underworld. This is where everything false has been stripped away to ground zero. There's nothing left to lose. Further destruction does nothing. These type of Pluto themes that we know and associate with, this is that ground zero state. And so from this state, only something can go up, only something can arise. This is that rebirth, right? But it will not, again, because the order matters, because the experience is remembered and permanently changes the system, it will not recreate the old form. And we get these associations of Pluto with the phoenix, right? Burning to the ashes and rising anew. And these types of destruction, regeneration, and rebirth themes. And in those themes, you never get an exact copy of what it was that was destroyed, right? You always get something different, something new. That rebirth is implying something brand new that was shaped by what was lost, but is a brand new version of that thing. And this is why we get these Pluto transformations that feel so profound, right? Because of this aspect. And we know Pluto is also associated with power. And when you think of how one thought, one choice, one action can make all the difference in the world, just think of how powerful your thought is, or your choice, or your action. They hold incredible power because they are what's driving this entire system. And the power of Pluto also overrides, right? It gets the final say. So it's overriding what you think needs to happen or what you think should happen. It's overriding your ego, your emotions, your personal preferences, because these creation and annihilation operators will force a system into transition, just as Pluto forces transformation regardless of your preference to it. So it's not negotiating, it's just concerned with driving that system into change. And it will change one way or another, with or without your cooperation. Now, I just want to take a moment to say that I'm not offering this series as the answer or to claim to be any type of an answer. I'm not of the opinion that we can form a single answer at this state in our journey. That we can have just some sort of Red Seal approved stamp explaining God or the universe or consciousness in one theory. And I think we've been caught up in a mind that where we've been searching for one answer to explain it all, and we can become very upset and argumentative, and all this conflict comes from having differences of opinions, different views, different lenses. And I personally see physics and astrology, science, spirituality, religion as all different lenses, right? And we're all trying to explore who we are. We're all trying to find the truth. We're all trying to come to know God in our own way, through our own lenses. And I think there's something very beautiful that happens when we stop invalidating other lenses and stop battling against each other and who's got the right one and all of this, and we start to cooperate and put our different lenses together. And when I think of that, I think of that story of all the people touching the different parts of the elephant, and they all have a different experience. But I see, I kind of see that as if everybody's at a different viewpoint of a car. You have somebody at the front of the car, you have somebody on each side, you have somebody in the back, somebody sitting inside of it, and somebody looking underneath of it, and everybody's going to report something different, and they're not wrong. And as we begin to lean into that curiosity of what others are experiencing and try to put them together, put these different views together, I think it helps us build a more holistic picture. And so what I'm offering is a perspective of blending them together, and what that can unlock for you, because it allowing different perspectives to come in doesn't threaten your beliefs or your perspectives. It can expand it. And together they can tell this very beautiful, beautiful story. And Pluto, it doesn't care about your ideology. It doesn't care about what religion you are, or whether you're an atheist or not, or what you believe or what you don't believe, what you subscribe to. It cares about alignment with love, with our deeper design, with what is sustainable. And when thoughts or systems move against that, Pluto will respond. And that response has this ripple effect outwards that affects many, many different things. So Pluto teaches us that creation and destruction are not symmetric. Transformation is, in fact, irreversible, and there are consequences, but this is how we learn, grow, and evolve. And Pluto says that, our choices matter more than we know. Even what we think is little choices, they're not little. Because energetically, what is going on is much bigger than we tend to think in the material realm. Now, as always, if you would like to explore more of Pluto themes and deepen your journey with Pluto through a gentle yin yoga practice that is available on my website at enchantedastrology.ca. And please feel free to check that out if that resonates with you. And next episode, we will move to the planet Uranus. And thank you so, so much for listening. I will be back soon with another episode.